So today we have a pretty massive update in the Mizkif and Emiru situation, as some court documents have come out related to a defamation case that Mizkif put against Emiru, where of course we all know she ended up going live and making some pretty humongous claims, right? Things like abuse, things like SA.
Today, I'm finally going to be opening up about the psychological and domestic abuse, stalking and harassment, sexual assault, and threats of blackmail that Ms. Kiff has done towards me, and some of these issues which are still ongoing.
And it ended up coming out that in these documents, Emiru's lawyer is saying that the SA allegations were just emotional truth, which in other words is trying to shift the idea of SA allegations and make it more or less come across as Emiru was just saying her opinion or saying how she felt about, that specific situation. Now, there of course might be more further updates in the future. We might again see more things. Now, this is Court Listener, which is a website that has all these different docs and court filings. I'll have it linked below. And if we go to March 3rd of 2026, we will see the motion to dismiss First Amendment complaint by Emily Shunk, aka Emiru. We're going to click on the main document, which is the dismissal. And we get to this humongous file where the main course I wanted to focus on is the Shunk's statements contained or protected emotional truth. And now throughout this filing, it includes a lot of references to other court cases related to SA and other very serious claims involving these types of accusations and allegations put forth by other people and whatnot. But we specifically get to the Emiru section around here, where it says, for the reasons set forth below, the court must dismiss the First Amendment complaint and end this charade. The First Amended complaint simply does not state a valid claim of defamation against Emily. It intentionally and strategically quotes individuals' words or phrases from Shrunk's livestream in order to distort her statements, depriving the court of the full context of her words as is required on a claim of defamation. Further, the livestream plainly represents Shunk's emotional truth, which is protected and not subject to a claim of defamation. So basically, Emiru's lawyer is trying to claim that although she directly said, I was SA'd by Mizkif, they're trying to now say it is an emotional truth, meaning that Emiru's definition in her head of SA is what she was describing, which unfortunately we all know that a word like SA has very strong connotation, a very strong meaning, and a very precise meaning. I think a lot of us would probably assume that that's not really something that you can just kind of throw out there and not 100% stand by. I do agree that Emiru is allowed to feel like the things that happened in this relationship were a little strange, or in the specific context of, where her and Mizkif were, lovey-dovey, and he ended up sliding her hand down her pants. She said no, he quickly backed up. You could describe that as a just embarrassing, weird interaction between a couple. Next, we get to this section, which kind of elaborates that even further, saying that Texas law has long held that even a verifiably false statement, that is an insane thing to word an SA claim as, if it's an opinion, or if Emiru stands by the idea that what she thinks happened that night was SA, it's extremely insane for her own lawyer to say a verifiably false statement is not defamation if the context of that statement reveals that the statement was merely a reflection of an opinion. Her own lawyer is saying that that SA claim was an opinion and also a verifiably false statement. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe I'm just not understanding why that term is even used, verifiably false statement, because I'm really kind of just a little interested about why that's even there. My opinion could be that this is the best Monster flavor. You might like the original. Kind of like if I say this is a soda. It's not a soda. So I guess by that definition, it's a verifiably false statement. But then it's my opinion that it's a soda. So that would mean that my definition of soda is different than your definition of soda. So where I'm getting is that Emiru is taking back the SA allegations. I could be wrong. Now, on page 18 of this document, again, I've skipped a whole lot of things that are basically like references and examples of other SA allegations and whatnot, where certain cases and things were able to be dismissed because it was basically pointed out to be facts and opinions and whatnot, right? Specifically, this case, Benson versus Guerrero, which is referenced quite a lot in most of the claims about Emiru and the lawyer and whatnot, where a daughter made a TikTok video in which she accused her stepfather of SA and accuses her mother of knowing about the assault and refusing to do anything to protect her. Basically, what happened was the daughter was able to take advantage of the Texas Citizens Participation Act's TCPA expedited procedures to move to dismiss the defamation claims filed by her mother and stepfather, because basically they were able to look through like the entire video and boil it down to it was mainly this girl's feelings about the entire situation and like how she felt like her mother didn't like do anything to try to stop it or help her, based on like the way the video was presented and based on the format of it being like a TikTok and all this other stuff. I'm not really diving into the whole defamation element. This is merely to kind of look into the whole Mizkif situation, because personally, I feel like, you know, he really got a tough end of the stick, right? Whether you like him or dislike him for his own reasons, the internet was very, very, very quick to basically completely disavow Mizkif and completely shun him from the world. The amount of like hatred for this guy compared to someone like Tectone, who literally got like a 10-year protective order on him by Pink Chew, or someone like Nuxtaku and all these other people who've been exposed and like doing creepy things on Discord and whatnot. The amount of sweeping for those guys compared to someone like Mizkif, who, if you even merely quote this guy or like include a video of this guy as like evidence or like in support of something, you pretty much get trashed. I've seen it firsthand when people, you know, dislike my videos and whatnot. But here we get to another point where it says here, with the context of the entire 90-minute live stream, of course, in reference to Emirus, it's clear that Emiru was telling her own emotional truth, explaining how their relationship came to an end and the struggles Emiru endured during their relationship. The live stream was spontaneous, unedited, and unscripted, underscoring that Emiru was not delivering a rehearsed narrative, but instead was speaking openly and vulnerably in the moment, her truth as she experienced it, which, I don't know, wasn't she like reading something that whole like stream? Like she had a notepad with all the thoughts and things she wanted to say and put out. I think it's very obvious that she really wanted this idea of Mizkif being this like monster who essayed her. She wanted that to be known very early on in the stream, because that's like one of the first main points she mentioned. She didn't skip the essay part and then like reference it later and let people like kind of come to that conclusion on their own. She directly said that there were elements of SA. Like the daughter in Benson, again, reference to like another case, Emiru's allegedly defamatory statements were either non-actionable statements of opinion or merely opinions masquerading as fact. So another one that's a little iffy to me. Or we were able to just, you know, click start streaming to millions of people and say things masquerading as facts. And then, you know, when actual legal responsibilities come, oh, if it ain't the consequence of my own actions, you know, comes around, I can simply say it was just an opinion. It was just my feelings. You tried to ruin this dude's career. You went online knowing that you have a very rabid fan base of either very loyal people, very huge creators who also will support you and probably have already had issues with Mizkif, and you also have a lot of simps. And you went online to accuse this guy of SA, all sorts of abuse, all sorts of blackmail, all sorts of other things, and are now just trying to claim that everything was simply opinions or masquerading as facts or emotional truth. I just think it's very important to not come online and make such humongous allegations that will ruin someone's career, and then kind of months later say, oh, like I it was kind of a misspeak, you know, it was just kind of like, I just thought of the word and it kind of made sense. Like, I don't know, like, that's not something you can really get away with. The lawyer then ends up referencing like a large part of the stream, live stream and transcript, about 42 minutes of her stream. I'm pretty sure that one's still up on YouTube. These statements are identical to the daughter's statement in Benson. Shunk is expressing her heartfelt emotional journey over several years with an admittedly toxic man. Her story is admirable, and in telling it, she is stating her emotional truth once again, not some statement of decisive fact. So again, the lawyer is just downright saying it's not true that Mizkif essayed Emiru. Again, I'm not defending any of the guy's other actions or claims or allegations or opinions that people may have of him. You're allowed to have those opinions. I think even Emiru is allowed to have opinions. If she thinks Mizkif is a stooge or she thinks Mizkif is like the worst person alive, whatever, that's her opinion. I think that line of like opinion really changes once you go onto a stream and post it for the world to see your claims that you're trying to put out there, trying to make these allegations, trying to push this narrative, saying these very strong words. Page 19 says Mizkif will certainly focus on Emiru's use of the term essay and argue that Emiru's statements are necessarily defamatory because they include the same term. However, in comparison to Benson here, Emiru described in detail the exact nature of Mizkif's essay against her, taking the whole context of Emiru's statement into account, as the court is required to do. The situation is very different than the stepfather in Benson. Shunk describes exactly what happened to her, and although she defines it as essay, the reasonable viewer would unquestionably understand that the term is her own description of what happened to her. The viewer is not left to guess as the nature of the assault based solely on the term essay, like in the Benson case, which focused on the fact the daughter did not actually describe the alleged assault. So again, we get to this weird point. Any reasonable viewer, apparently they don't know that in 2026 there's not a lot of reasonable viewers out there. There's not a lot of people who will read an entire 25-page document, multiple of them by the way. They'll not watch an entire 1-hour live stream. They will simply see the clip of Emirus saying, yeah, Mizkif essayed me, the end. Unfortunately, this happened. She made this claim. She said this word. She said he did this. And now they're trying to say, oh, well, I mean, yeah, she said that. But, like, if you have a brain, if you're reasonable, you'd understand that, like, she didn't mean essay as in essay. She meant essay as an essay. Like, these are the mental gymnastics that lawyers do, of course, to try to, get things dropped and whatnot. It's just interesting to actually read it and have it like be public at this point, because people have made this case very public. This situation is crazy, and this is pretty much the update. And I want to know what you guys think down below. Do not take this as me like coming out like in full sweep for Mizkif, right? It just kind of goes to show you that something very serious happened in this relationship apparently, and it seems like things are changing. Words are being thrown around that weren't exactly used in the right context, that, again, are life-changing, life-ruining terms and life-ruining allegations that are now seemingly being taken back because they worded them wrong, or it more or less came down to opinion, or just they didn't use it in the right context, or they didn't even mean to use the word. And these are the things you really have to like take into account when looking into this kind of stuff. I want to know what you guys think down below, of course. Thank you for watching. Bye.